Hello gamers, this is Sai and welcome back to Which Way Games. Now, what was the reason that guards of Skyrim gave up adventuring?
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
And with that being said, let's get on with the video.
When it comes to fantasy-inspired action games, there are plenty for gamers to choose from. Such games like Skyrim with its vast open world that tells the tale of the Dragonborn, and the infamous Legend of Zelda series that has Link save Princess Zelda as well as the Kingdom of Hyrule from the evil Ganon time and time again through the ages. Now, game developers clearly got inspiration from mythical tales from around the world that told stories of heroes battling demonic entities of otherworldly origins.
But the world of gaming isn't the only thing inspired by mythology. Films such as Clash of the Titans and Jason the Argonauts come to mind.
Within these films, the fantasy element of mythology stands out, and to traverse the many locations within these worlds, heroes will usually have the help of a noble steed, and one I can think of in particular is Epona from Ocarina of Time. Now, there is a game that takes the fantasy elements of dealing with towering bosses and combines it with a horse that will follow a hero into battle.
This would be Shadow of the Colossus, a beautiful and endearing game that tells the story of a young man's adventure to bring back a loved one from the other side. But before I carry on, let's go back to where it all started.
Game developers SC Japan Studio and Team Eco had previously worked on the fantastic Eco that tells the story of a young boy with horns exploring an abandoned castle and eventually meeting a young girl called Yorda. The pair then go on a journey to escape the castle and the shadow creatures sent by the evil queen.
When Eco was released, it was well received by gamers and critics, going on to win several awards and becoming a cult classic.
Eco also influenced other games such as Twilight Princess and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, with its use of storytelling and character building to create a bond with gamers while playing. Following on from this, Team Eco began work on Shadow of the Colossus in 2002, and it was destined to be a direct sequel to the first game, carrying on the adventure of Eco and Yorda's journey after escaping the castle. However, lead developer Fumito Ueda wanted Shadow of the Colossus to stand out from other games at the time, so decided to work on creating a new visual style as well as a gameplay element that would give gamers a unique experience while playing. Having several artists working together with game developers, they created a vast open world filled with many different locations that would give gamers the impression of a civilization that existed many years ago, and the only thing that appeared dominant in this world was the Colossi. Now, the majority of games have smaller enemies that gamers would deal with before facing up against the final boss. But Ueda wanted to scrap that entirely and have the Colossi be the only thing that gamers would encounter, so the game would differentiate from other games. The inspiration from mythology and the animal kingdom stands out with each of the Colossi, but more on that later. And come early 2006, Shadow of the Colossus was released with much anticipation from gamers eager to play this future classic.
And like always, let's go back to the past to see how Shadow of the Colossus was advertised.
"この戦いに勝つことで、僕は何を手に入れ、何を失ったのだろう。ワンダと巨像、プレイステーション."
The story of Shadow of the Colossus begins on a cloudy night where a hawk flies high above a young man and his horse as they navigate a dangerous cliffside along the edge of a canyon. Wanda and his horse Agro have been travelling for several days in search of the Forbidden Lands. Finally arriving at their destination, they are met with a tall stone gate, with a narrow passage that leads to an enormous bridge spanning into the Forbidden Lands. As Wanda and Agro travel over the bridge, they see a vast array of terrain in the distance. At the end of the bridge lays a shrine of worship, a gigantic structure that apparently holds the power of a god. Wanda and Agro venture inside and make their way down to the Great Hall, which is lined with 16 stone idols. And at the end of this Great Hall is an altar that overlooks the Forbidden Land. The whole time Wanda's been travelling with Agro, he's been carrying something extremely important to him, a body wrapped in a cloth sheet. He places the body on the altar, slowly removing the sheet, revealing the lifeless body of Mono, a beautiful young woman dressed in white. Wanda looks upon Mono and remembers the words of the High Priest Lord Aemon.
Was you Aurel Yetoro Ikudu Ibikuka Yulzolu Ionobu Yulilo Cock I Yuzi Yulakol Doloya Olik Olazulam Cos Ilzozeriku Atzoko Amnos Crudo Laomism Wop was you and the last also. Few hours is good. Ikolal Kizado you Lola. Islis was I. Aumizquiki. You are la quick.
Wanda is suddenly snapped back to the present because of Aggro being startled by the appearance of several shadowy figures. Seeing this, he draws a mysterious sword from his sheath and points it towards the shadow figures. Immediately, a booming voice fills the great hall from the aperture above, and is somewhat surprised that Wanda possesses the ancient sword. Wanda identifies this voice belonging to a god called Dormin and asks for Mono to be brought back from death. Dormin at first seems indifferent regarding Wanda's request, and is more interested in the ancient sword. He does eventually reveal that bringing Mono back to life may not be impossible, providing that Wanda destroys the 16 stone idols lined across the walls of the Great Hall. However, these idols can only be destroyed by killing their living incarnations, known as Colossi. Wanda agrees, but Dormin warns him that the price of bringing Mono back to life may be one that he will regret. Wanda replies simply with, "It doesn't matter." And with this, Dormin instructs him to venture outside and hold the ancient sword up so sunlight can touch the blade. Doing this, 8 soft beams of light emit from the tip of the sword, and Wanda then moves the ancient sword towards a valley in the distance. The light focuses on the area, and with this, Wanda mounts Aggro in search of the first Colossi.
Gameplay has gamers controlling Wanda as he ventures through an open world in search of the 16 Colossi.
They can be found in remote areas where gamers will have to travel to by riding Aggro. Each Colossi comes in many shapes and sizes. They'll have gamers feeling out of their depth, especially when dealing with some of the behemoths that make up the Colossi. And when each Colossi has been located, gamers must discover the weak points, which can be done by reflecting sunlight from the ancient sword. The first 2 battles take place in large open areas, but as gamers progress through the game, these areas become more built up and gamers can use the environment to their advantage.
And of course, gamers will have to figure out how to get the attention of the Colossi. That's where the bow comes in handy.
The majority of the Colossi have areas covered with fur. These furred areas will allow Wanda to climb up and grip onto the Colossi, especially when it begins to thrash around in an attempt to dislodge him.
Although when Wanda is on top of the Colossi, Aggro can be seen running along the ground, keeping a watchful eye over his master. And this is where the connection with gamers truly came into effect.
Now, the horse Aggro isn't just a means of transportation. He acts as a support character for Wanda and can be used when it comes to fighting from horseback. However, there will be times when Aggro can't follow into areas where Wanda can go, but is always within earshot if gamers pay close attention. Coming back to the comment I made about some of the Colossi being inspired by mythology, as well as the animal kingdom, this couldn't be more true with Avion and Pythedra. Avion resembles a large bird, and Pythedra looks like a horse mixed with spider-like qualities.
In fact, I remember my first encounter with Phaedra and spending most of my time hiding from this nightmarish Colossi.
Now with all the Colossi defeated, Lord Aemon has reached the Forbidden Land with his men, and they enter the Shrine of Worship. Upon entering the Great Hall, they see the lifeless body of Mono, but are horrified to see that all but one of the stone idols has been destroyed. However, this stone idol suddenly shatters in front of them, breaking the seal that contained Dormin's power, and Lord Aemon begins to pray at the side of Mono. While praying, he and his men are disturbed by the appearance of Wanda. He then orders his men to shoot Wanda, noting that he's now possessed by the shadows of the dead. One arrow lands on Wanda's knee, causing immense agony. He desperately tries to get up and crawl to Mono, but one of Aemon's men impales him with the ancient sword through the chest. However, Wanda stands up, removing the sword, and becomes fully encased within shadow. And several shadow figures appear from the ground, merging with Wanda, who begins to grow in size until he fills the Great Hall. At this moment, Lord Aemon and his men realise that Dormin has been resurrected. Grabbing the sword, Emond's men flee the Great Hall to escape Dormin, leaving behind Mono, who remains lifeless on the altar. Dormin is too slow to pursue the fleeing men as they escape, but as they leave the shrine, Emond utters an incantation and furiously throws the sword into the pool of water at the entrance of the Great Hall. The water lights up, creating a vortex, stripping away the essence of Dormin from Wanda until only his shadow remains. Suddenly, Wanda cannot escape the vortex and is sucked into the pool of water as well. Now with Dormin sealed away, the bridge to the Forbidden Land begins to collapse, and Emond, along with his men, barely escape with their lives. Looking back on the destroyed bridge, Emond knows that no one will once again be able to enter or leave the Forbidden Land, and if Wanda still lives, he must one day atone for his crimes.
When released, Shadow of the Colossus sold extremely well, becoming an instant classic hit with gamers and going on to become a cult classic.
The game was praised for its aesthetically pleasing presentation, simple gameplay and endearing characters, and it's easy to see why Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games that is held in high regard with most gamers. Following on from the success of Shadow of the Colossus, Team Ico created The Last Guardian, which told the story of an old man's recollection of an adventure he had while as a child, and his encounter with a wing-like cat creature called Trico.
Another fantastic game that shared the same formula, created connection with gamers while playing. Definitely one that's going to come back to the channel.
Eventually, with the release of more powerful consoles, Shadow of the Colossus will get a remaster, improving on everything that made the original such a classic to play. The latest version on the PlayStation 4 is visually pleasing to see and captures what Ueda and Kado initially wanted.
Anyway, come back next time when the world's most famous plumber has to save Princess Peach from Bowser, or all these mysterious large paintings to other worlds. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next game.
You